In this episode of Hot Hot 2.5 Geeks, we're going to be getting all up in the Zen 4 and Ryzen 7000 to be exact, with a very special guest from AMD. Next. Welcome back yet again, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another fine episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream. Yes, there are 2.5 of us here today. One of us is easily worth a geek and a half, I would say. But Marco's here, the always entertaining, effervescent, and sometimes infamous Marco Chippetta. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's quite an introduction.
Well, you're not infamous today. I mean, sometimes you are, at least to me anyways. But I think
I'm not famous. I'm infamous.
In the famous, yeah.
10 points. Whoever knows what movie that's a reference from.
You got me on that one. Maybe we'll go to the smart guy in the house. A gentleman by the name of Robert Hallock from AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. Don't you know? That's what that stands for. Robert, welcome back to the stream, buddy.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be here as always. I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna have to take the L on the movie as well. I've heard that quote, but it's just not happening for me.
So. Yeah, I'm showing my age. I'm showing my age, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, your age is showing better than mine, guaranteed. But yeah, I don't have that reference off the top of my head. But Robert Hallock, welcome back to the stream. Robert Hallock, Director of Technical Product Marketing for AMD Ryzen. Just Ryzen? Is that your only bailiwick, Robert?
Just Ryzen.
That's plenty, by the way.
It's a lot. It's enough.
Yeah. No, it's great to have you with us. You've graced the airwaves with us a few times now, and you guys had a big Computex unveil, so we'll be digging into that shortly. But what's new and exciting in your world? Maybe for some of the folks that aren't familiar with you and your position, why don't we start there real quick and learn a little bit about what you do at AMD, and then I guess what's new and exciting for you these days, besides Zen 4, which we'll be getting to.
Yeah, well, let's see. I'm starting to feel like the moss on the stone at AMD. I've been there 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've in the past done graphics, and now I do all Ryzen consumer parts. So mobile, desktop, Threadripper, kind of all of that comes to myself and to my team. So I get to work with all the fun enthusiast stuff.
Which is what we're here. Boy. Yeah. Boy, I tell you what, you said a word I haven't heard in a while. You said Threadripper. Yeah. I miss new Threadrippers, Robert.
Oh, I do too. Well, good thing there's more coming.
Yeah, maybe. First breaking news of the cast. The first information.
See, Threadripper is not going anywhere.
I have to interrupt everybody because we have a winner. The Freckled Trout got the Three Amigos reference.
There he goes.
Very
cool. There we are.
Freckled Trout. Awesome. There you go. I even love the username. It's perfect. That's great. Yeah, good stuff. AMD Robert. Yeah, great stuff. No, so yeah, that was a tidbit that was just dropped. New Threadrippers are coming, and that's all you can say, probably.
That's all I can say. I mean, who knows when? Could be somewhere between now and 10 years from now, but it is happening.
Awesome. And yeah, lots of stuff announced this week in your Computex keynote unveil. Dr. Sue and company dropped lots of new stuff, specifically Zen 4 and Ryzen 7000. So we'll dig into that. We'll start peppering you with some questions, but we'll also go to the audience. The audience, folks, if you're watching the stream, please feel free to fire your questions in. Keep it civil, keep it nice. Obviously, keep it reasonable. In other words, we're not going to try and get Robert fired here or anything with trade secrets that he can't talk about. I mean, we could try, but that wouldn't be nice.
We could try.
Fire your questions in, and Marco's going to moderate and bounce as always to make sure the riffraff stays in check. Right, buddy?
Absolutely. And for everyone that's already firing questions in the chat, if we'll try to squeeze them in where it's appropriate, so we're not bouncing all around. If we get towards the end and we missed a question, just ask it again. We'll try to keep track of the chat, but there's a lot to cover. We're gonna focus on Zen 4 and AM5, but there was a handful of announcements before that we should really cover as well. So just keep that in mind as we roll through.
I already see a good one in there. There's some good stuff firing in already. We'll have to probably do a lightning round at some point, Robert.
I'm ready. I've been in the hot seat all week, boys. So I do this all day. Let's do it.
You're nimble, huh? Great. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, Marco, you want to dig in? You want me to dig in?
Yeah, I'll start with the first one. It was actually a question that I mentioned in an earlier chat, but I thought your answer was really good, Robert, and I want everyone to understand. So one of the first products that that Dr. Sue announced on stage was Mendocino. This is a new low power part that's going to be in affordable mobile platforms. But the thing that sort of was somewhat of a surprise for people that weren't following rumors was that Mendocino is mixing Zen 2 and RDNA 2. It's like a Ryzen 6000 series with different cores. Can you explain some of the thought processes that went into that part and why use Zen 2 or not Zen 3?
Sure. So it helps to contextualize with a couple other parts actually that we pre-announced or unveiled. I don't know what you want to call it, but during our earnings for the last quarter, the first one was called Phoenix, which will take up thin and light gaming notebook, ultra thin gaming notebook. That's a big segment, big and growing segment in the gaming space. And then Dragon Range on top of that for higher TDP, high performance notebooks. But the third piece of that strategy is Mendocino, where as AMD, our business grows, as we are more successful in OEM, we are reinvesting that back into our portfolio to produce unique chips for more segments versus this year where we had, I'm just going to use code names because it's easier, Rembrandt for premium notebook and Barcelo for sort of mainstream, upper mainstream, right? So that would be the 6000 series and 5000 series. Fast forward 6 months, 8 months time, maybe a little more, depending on the product. We'll have multiple new dies, new SoCs with unique capabilities for different markets. So why Zen 2? Being that it's an entry-level market, there are very stringent cost requirements, and that comes down to die size versus performance. So Zen 2 is actually the last core complex that was a 4-core complex. So if you're looking to make the die as small as possible and fit in all the other stuff that we wanted to fit in, kind of borrowed from 6000 series, then the 4-core complex area-wise makes the most sense. So that's sort of the economic point of view. From the user point of view, I think Zen 2 is going to blow the doors off of the entry-level market in terms of performance and on battery life. We expect to win in both categories handily and provide people features that were brand new for the 6000 series in January of this year, now accessible in like a $500 notebook. So it's one part cost, it's one part die size, it's one part what makes sense for the user base, and Zen 2 is the best fit for all of those.
Nice. And you have RDNA 2 iGPU on board, so some nice multimedia capabilities to go with that as well. Can you talk about kind of the performance profile of that instantiation of RDNA 2 at this point? Is it kind of like a full fat like we'd see in Ryzen 6000, or what do you think we were looking at there?
I'll level. It's designed to be more of a productivity implementation. To get display and encode decode, you need a certain number of compute units in the graphics core. So our strategy was to bring in compute units that helps light up that IP that these users will take advantage of with display and encode. But it's not going to be a gaming chip. I won't venture to say that. It's very much a $500 laptop work, play, school experience, right?
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. All right, cool.
Mhm.
All right. Oh, you're muted, buddy. You are muted.
Oh no.
No, where I did
Always.
it twice. So you may not be able to say, and it may be too early, but a question popped in asking basically, are there going to be any passively cooled Mendocinos, you think, or they're all going to be actively cooled?
It's hard to say. Well, it's really hard to say because designing a passive solution like right off the bat tends to take you outside of the price range of that market anyway,
Right.
just in like engineering cost and material cost. And that's not AMD's point of view, that's partner point of view. It doesn't mean that the SoC can't scale that low or is incapable. I just wouldn't count on it. It's not common in the market.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't even think of it from that perspective, but yeah, that's probably a fair bit of cost with a thermal solution without a fan. Yeah. All right, go for it, Marco. I know we got another one here too.
Yeah, let's jump to smart access storage quickly as well. So during the presentation, you guys had mentioned, I think this slide specifically said faster loading and higher fidelity streaming. Now, was that relative to typical games of today, or relative to games that will be already enabled with Microsoft's direct storage? Like, how does adding smart access storage sort of supersede games that will have direct storage?
Sure. So it's good to start with direct storage. Great technology. I'm so glad it's here. Getting information onto the frame buffer has been pretty pokey for a while now in PC gaming, and we're finally overturning that. So kudos to Microsoft. One thing that you need to know about direct storage is that it's NVMe to RAM to frame buffer. That's the flow of information in direct storage. Smart access storage, on the other hand, skips the main memory step. We can go straight from NVMe to frame buffer. So the latency is lower and the pipe is wider, and that should give cases with lots of texture streaming, which is becoming more common in these new APIs or new game engines. I think UE5 just showed off texture streaming with crazy fidelity, and that requires an enormous amount of low latency bandwidth between your storage device, where the textures live, and the frame buffer, where they'll ultimately be rendered. So having smart access storage allows us to take advantage of both direct storage cases, but also supersede in both performance and latency by skipping the main memory step.
Gotcha. That cleared it up perfectly for me. I'm glad that we asked.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want to stay on that or on and go to the IO die? I have some questions on the IO die.
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead. Why don't you start on the IO die? Because we got to get this N4. We only have them for an hour here.
You're right. Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. So we're working our way down to the core here, and I kind of wanted to understand, because the IO die is new. You have a new 6-nanometer IO die in Ryzen 7000. The Zen 4 architecture seems to be a significant advancement over the one used in the previous gen. There's a lot to cover: 6-nanometer process, integrated RDNA 2 graphics, DDR5 exclusivity, PCI Express 5. Can you talk a little bit about the enhancements to the IO die, I guess, and just kind of a little bit more coloring around that? I mean, we got the new speeds and feeds and the new connectivity involved here, but just kind of from a high level, what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, there's a couple things we wanted to accomplish looking at the new IO die. For our commercial market, which doesn't buy discrete cards at all, having a certain amount of RDNA compute units in the IO die made a lot of sense, because they want CPUs that can light up a monitor, run office productivity type applications, browse the web, with the graphics that's right in the CPU. And for a while now, we've only been able to play our APU products into that space, which has by no means been a detriment for us, but we'd like to offer a richer portfolio and more options. So having graphics in the IO die allows us to better address the needs of that commercial market. For enthusiasts, it gives us video encode decode, would allow you to diagnose a dodgy graphics card. We've all been there. or hell, just get your system up and running while you're waiting for a GPU to show up. So that's kind of the graphics side. From a power management point of view, the new IO die borrows a lot from the Ryzen 6000 series. Zen 3 Plus and the SoC around it was, I think you guys have seen, is extremely good at active power management and low power operation. And that was an area where we wanted to do more. And it required a new die design to do that. So it felt like a good time to bring in more power management there, which will allow us to allocate more of the overall power budget of the CPU to the cores rather than the IO die. So it's kind of a secondary performance boost. And then last but not least, as we transition to PCI Gen 5 and DDR5, new controllers, new IP, means you need a new layout. So all of these things were coming together, and it was time to do it. So we did.
Awesome. Had another question come in related that I thought we could try and field if possible. Can you tell us the CU count on the IO die for relative graphics horsepower gauging?
Couple ways I'll slice that. I can't go into CU count yet, but I
Okay.
want to say that this is light duty graphics, right? It's not a replacement for an APU. We intend to offer APUs going forward in our roadmap. And by APU, I mean a processor with big game-capable graphics. That strategy is a hallmark of AMD and is not going anywhere. So even though there's graphics inside this chip, we still think of it as a CPU versus what people think of as an APU. So the whole intent is give people some quality of life features with encode, decode, and display, and significantly improve our applicability to the commercial market. I hope that answers the question.
Got it. Yeah. Put a head on it, as they say, so you can get some eyes.
If I can just squeeze in something quick related, is the graphics configuration going to be the same across all Ryzen 7000s, or at least the initial wave, or will there be differentiation there?
There's one IO die. They'll all have it, just like Zen 3, right? There's one IO die on all chips.
I'm talking in terms of the RDNA 2, the graphics.
Correct. Yeah, there's just one configuration of the die.
Okay,
got it.
Cool. Thank you. So,
all right, you're up again, buddy.
Yeah, let's do chipsets quick, and then I think we got a couple of questions on platform stuff, and then the rest will be Zen 4. So you guys disclosed a trio of chipsets: X670E, X670, and B650. And there was a little confusion in the comments on how the X670 and X670E are actually different. Now, it's the same chipset, but there are motherboard differences for those two, for the X670 and X670E, correct? If you can just give some clarity on that. That's
a fair summary. So some context, like why we did this, going back to the early days of X570, that was a Gen 4 platform across the board, and Gen 4 was new at the time. And one of the big pieces of feedback we got from people is, well, I don't have a Gen 4 graphics card yet, or I don't have Gen 4 storage yet. So is there an option where this is taken off and I can save some money? We took that into account. We were aware of that. And as we thought about how to bring Gen 5 to market, we did tweak our strategy as a result of that feedback. So the extreme and the non-extreme, same chipset, but you need some sort of way to differentiate for people at a glance, because that's kind of the only time you have at a retailer. At a glance, the ones that have Gen 5 versus the ones that don't. So the extreme have two PCI Express graphics slots that are Gen 5. You can either do 1x16 or 2x8, and they have one Gen 5 storage. The non-extreme boards, Gen 5 is optional, and it would only be on the top slot if it's implemented, but you do get the Gen 5 storage. So what that ends up doing is, where there was kind of only like one X570 clustered around one price point at its launch back in the day, we want to enable a wider range of motherboards with premium controllers, with premium power phases, more PCB layers, better memory routing for overclocking, but maybe some don't have the cost adder of Gen 5 because the user doesn't need it. So that was why we went the way we went with that decision.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. Thanks. That's clear to me.
Let's see. There was something that came in. I don't know if this one, Marco, do you see Robert Cesario's question? Is that
one that just popped in? I think we'll get to, actually, yeah, let's pop it in.
Kind of related, right?
May not be able to answer. So on the chipset front, I guess you confirmed on a live stream yesterday that B650 will have some overclocking support?
Confirmed. In terms of overclocking features, we're not changing our strategy in terms of what kinds of chipsets have it or don't. And we're not changing any major features either. So what you know of Zen 3 today in terms of overclocking capabilities and which motherboards allow it, no change.
Okay. And you may not be able to answer, but since we're talking overclocking, have you seen any crazy internal numbers that you can share in terms of overclocking Zen 4?
Sure. Of course I have.
Can you share any of them?
You've seen them. We know that much.
Yeah, I've seen them. I guess it's worth, it's worth discussing the philosophy of our company. I know people like to overclock. I do as well. It's been a long time hobby for all of us. But the other way to look at overclocking for the vast majority of people is that you've hidden performance behind a voided warranty. And we don't think that that's right. We fundamentally don't want to do that. So as a matter of design and design strategy, we will always try to get as much as we can out of that silicon at stock from a CPU frequency point of view. And we don't want to leave a lot of performance hidden for people who are ultra knowledgeable to go find. Now, that means Ryzen 7000 series will fabric overclocking, memory overclocking, still big players. That will definitely play a role. Looks really good. But I would say don't expect sea changes in CPU overclocking, because that's just not who we are or what we want.
Mm-hmm. And and I'm going to say, as I know Robert can't disclose lots of stuff. We're way too early. But one of the things that held back AM4 was power delivery to the CPU. There was more under the hood for Ryzen 5000 series that just the socket couldn't provide. So the move to a new socket and having more power and a lower power IO die, it's going to enable some new things. And I'm sure we'll know more as we get closer to launch on that.
Hell, I can be a little more candid than that, actually.
Sure,
go for it.
Yeah. So I'd like to fact check myself, actually. So yesterday I said that it's 170 watt PPT, and that was just me stupidly misreading a document. So I'll correct that now. All Ryzen sockets, you take the TDP, you multiply that number by 1.35, and you get the socket power limit. So 65 watt TDP, 88 watts. 105 watt TDP, 142 watts. That means this new 170 watt group we've developed has a socket power limit of 230 watts, 229.5 actually. And so what this will do, this combination of stuff that we have, 5 nanometer, Zen 4, lower power IO die, higher socket power capability, that is multiple contributors to both single thread and multi-thread compute performance that are all coming together in the same platform. Already we're seeing 40+% multi-thread improvement at the same core count, so that's not bad. There was definitely a lot left on the table with AM4 given its age. That started as a quad-core socket. With 16 cores at the end of its life. So yeah, there's some headroom.
Awesome.
Katya, you just, I'm scrapping a question from the list because that was something that we were going to ask specifically to clarify TDP and PPT. So thank you, Robert. Very cool. And just quickly, and then there's only 2 more questions and then we're moving on to Zen 4. So Regarding socket AM5, this one should be quick. Cooler compatibility. It's obviously we know AM4 coolers are going to be compatible with AM5, but is that universal? We had some reader questions. Is that only for coolers that use the plastic mounting clips, or is that all coolers? Are the mounting holes the same around the socket as well?
Yeah, mounting holes are the same, and that taps into maybe a secondary question that might exist out there about why the heat spreader looks so unusual. And,
you're killing me, Robert. You're killing me.
Maybe I'll just hold there. I won't.
No, go ahead. I'm only kidding. Go ahead.
So in virtually every dimension, socket AM5 is the same. It has the same package size, both length and width. It has the same height off of the motherboard, so the same Z height, and it has the same keep out zone or blank space around the socket and the same bolt patterns through the motherboard. So if you flip over an AM4 CPU, you'll notice there's that blank square in the center where there are some surface mounted capacitors. There's no pins. That blank area isn't there on AM5 because we've increased the pin count, the pad count, and so now it's pads across the entire back for LGA. And so those capacitors had to move somewhere else, and they moved to the top of the chip. But you can't put them under the heat spreader because that's a thermal problem. So we just put cutouts in the heat spreader and move them up top into the cutouts. And that allowed us to keep the same package size, die size, heat spreader height, cooling pattern, yada, yada, despite all the massive changes that are coming in AM5. You can still reuse your coolers.
And I thought it was just for a cool looking heat spreader.
No, it's purely functional.
So
go ahead.
Dave,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, I was gonna. I don't know. Were you gonna move on past the socket? Because I
had just two more quick questions on the heat spreader.
Do it.
Maybe it's one. Let me just double check. So it does. Can you comment on how the heat spreader's attached? What thermal interface material you're using, or is that off limits for now?
It's soldered. Yeah.
It is. It's soldered on. Okay. And are there any challenges with having less mass in that heat spreader because of the cutouts for the capacitors?
Nope.
Okay. There you go. Very cool.
Nope.
I mean, the reason why we solder is that it really helps. I'll just, for the sake of conversation, eliminate the role of the IHS in the overall thermal dissipation. That solder provides like a really nice direct thermal transfer interface between the die to the heatsink, right? There's not a lot of loss or resistance, thermally speaking, in that interface because of the solder. So it's not like you're leaning on the heat spreader to amortize the heat across the chip. It does play that role, yes, but to a lesser extent than if you had like a thermal paste, which would allow heat to accumulate in the heat spreader. And that's part of the reason why we solder. It just helps alleviate the role of the heat spreader, and it becomes more of a functional mechanical die protector than maybe like an active cooling component.
Yeah. So if you're a hardcore overclocker and you go to delit it to get some views, it's soldered. So don't just yank on it. You got to heat that thing up.
And also just like don't bother. Like it's a 1-2 degrees Celsius difference. It's not worth it.
There you go. You heard it from the man.
Okay. Not worth it to delit. Okay.
Very cool.
I had a question on storage again, near and dear to my heart. It's one of the ways, certainly as we've talked about many times in the stream, it's one of the ways an end user really feels a responsiveness uplift is snappier storage, more bandwidth. You guys had a joint release with Phison and next gen PCI Express 5 SSDs. Is the collaboration more about qualification and compatibility, or is AMD actively working with Phison to optimize storage performance on AMD platforms? Is there a little bit of special sauce going on there or something like that?
It's a little bit of both. If you're a PCI Express device manufacturer, one of the things you really need is a reference platform. Something that you can count on, is stable, gives predictable results that you can validate your solution on, and that is socket AM5 for this effort. It's going to provide a nice bump in sequential storage, even very early in Gen 5 SSD life, sequential read. And then, yeah, it's one part validation as well, right? Being able to work together. Hey, let's test if my SSD works in your motherboard, my motherboard works with your SSD. It sounds boring or trivial, but with high bandwidth, high frequency signaling, I assure you it's not.
Yeah.
It's one part technical, one part optimization. And there are, I will say as a final thought, certainly ways to adjust how a controller or group of NAND behaves to advantage the way a PCI Express controller in one device behaves over another. So that's part of the effort as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Very cool. All right. Do we want to finally dive into the belly?
Yes.
Or
I'm
you got one
going
more?
to turbo some reader questions or some viewer questions because I feel like I've let some slide by, and some of these I
there's
know
been a
Robert
few.
could answer really quickly, or he may not be able to answer. So, Robert, you've actually answered this on a previous cast. I'm losing it in the chat. But lifespan of AM5, is AMD expecting it to last a few generations? We know AM4 lasted quite a long time. What's the intention with AM5?
Too soon to say. We know people want to know. We are working on that answer. We intend to provide that answer. I just don't have it at Computex. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. No problem. And also, quickly, we know it's in Ryzen 6000 mobile. Is Pluton in Zen 4? Microsoft Pluton?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, actually. I have to go look. I'll get back to you guys.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And this might also be too early. Maybe you can give us just some light guidance here. Will there be, I can't believe I'm missing the comment. Will there be mainstream Ryzen 7000, or are you guys just targeting enthusiasts at launch?
You should expect a family.
Expect a family. Perfect. That's what I expected you to say there.
That's very nice.
Let me just see if I missed
Family
anything
show.
else that I can ask before we roll in here.
Let's see.
All right, so let's roll, because some of the other questions are going to get
Some of the
answered
stuff's
just in the
related,
course
yeah.
of this conversation here.
All right.
So let's start with the claimed greater than 15% single thread uplift that was mentioned
Lots of
during the
questions on
presentation.
this.
So we know that's a combination of architecture and frequency, but can you explain how AMD came up with that 15%? Is it only certain workloads? Was it a wide variety of workloads, and that's an average? Can you just give some color on the 15% uplift?
That's a fun
He's smiling.
question. The thing that AMD has always endeavored to do is publish numbers that are highly reproducible, and we tend to err on the conservative side on purpose. We don't want to disappoint. We'd like to be realistic. And so it's worth saying that this is still early in the life of making these CPUs real. 3 months, 4 months, however long it takes to get to the fall. It doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it's a lot of time in terms of finalizing CPUs. So we guided greater than 15 because we definitely know it will be higher than 15, but how much higher will depend. And I will also say that there are multiple ways we're being conservative. As an example, Zen 3 is a good analogy here. If you think back to our introduction of that architecture, we said on the whole, that's a 19% IPC uplift. Some were single digits, some were much higher than that, but geo mean around 19, 20%. And I feel like that's a widely accepted value. But if you go look at Cinebench in particular, that was only 8, 9, 10%. So we use Cinebench at Computex, and I'm not promising there's going to be this massive IPC uplift across the board. I just don't know yet. I haven't seen the numbers, but all we've given is a tiny window into the world of what the chip can do. I'm very optimistic about its performance, and there's a lot more to say. But not getting over 15% with a prototype part, it's not bad. More to come.
Not too shabby. Yeah.
Yeah, just going back to the original Ryzen launch, you guys surprised everybody with, what you had said in the lead up to the launch was way more conservative than what most people got in the independent test. So I assume you guys are doing something similar here. That's for sure. So we have a handful of questions. Some of them aren't just Zen 4, but quickly, let's just burn through a couple. Will you guys continue to have 5800 X3Ds being released, or is this just a one-time thing as we lead up to Zen 4?
There'll be more. Yep.
There's going to be more. Okay, cool.
And
you may
follow
not
on to that.
Oh, if you have a follow on, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a similar kind of question. Could we is cache in your future for Zen 4? Extra cache, I should say.
I will say that 3D V cache is not going anywhere. It is a core lever of ours in terms of performance, and we've been on. People tend to focus on Zen, right? It's been 5 or 6 years of Zen. There's a lot of progress there, but I would ask people to think about what we've done with packaging as well, going from monolithic die to same capability chiplets to mixed process node, mixed capability chiplets, then 3D stacking. That too was a 6-year journey. And so we're not taking our foot off the gas, and you will see 3D V-cache parts going into the future, but I can't promise anything specific today.
Sure. And I would think, as a matter of fact, that 3D chip stacking technology is in its infancy, relatively speaking. It's new cutting edge tech. And as that gets better, things get more manufacturable, costs come down, stuff like that. So you would theorize that it would be easier to do in the future as well. So cool. Very cool.
Yep.
So we have a few questions on clocks and frequencies, but I'm going to ask the question that I wrote down first, and we'll see how things get answered just naturally here. So during the Computex presentation, Dr. Su showed, I forget the name of the game. It was Ghostwire. And during the demo, the CPU that was running the demo, which I believe she said was a 16-core part, boosted to above 5.5 gigahertz during some points of this test. Was that strictly a stock configuration? Was there any, special cooling, anything going on here?
I love the skepticism, guys.
No, well, because you could technically on a current platform, you're not breaking any warranties to say enable PBO, or if you use a better cooler, you get better boost. So just some color on that demo.
So I was involved with helping to put that demo together with, of course, with many other members of the team. And I want to be so clear with everybody that what you see is what you get is really important to us at AMD. I am not going to stick an air conditioning unit or a chiller on top of my CPU. I'm not going to show you something that you can't easily recreate at home. That's just, it feels ethically wrong. So the demo we showed was a prototype 16-core part. Its power limit was configured somewhere above 105 watt TDP, but below the final 170 spec that we're working on, because it's just not fused with final specs yet. It was running a 280 mil liquid cooler, so it was an Asetek unit, so you could get similar results with, I don't know, Corsair or NZXT, large air cooler, running DDR5 6000, 2 sticks of that, 16 gigs each on an AMD reference motherboard, in Windows 11. Just plug it in and turn it on. And yeah, it's a 16-core CPU, and not every game is going to use all of those cores and threads, but I assure you that all of the cores and threads that were running that game were very easily running at 5.5.
Nice. Gotcha. And can you say how many threads are being utilized, or is that not something you can talk about yet?
Not yet. You'll see. Okay.
And since you mentioned the DDR5 6000 was used in that test, are you able to comment on the memory fabric to memory clock? I'm sorry, the Infinity Fabric to memory clock ratios or anything? Is it 1-to-1? Anything you can say related to that?
I can't say anything in particular, but I think people who have benefited from fabric overclocking will continue to see a benefit.
Gotcha. And
Got it.
someone asked, and I believe I heard you say it. You just said that the chip used in that demo was configured at that point for 105 watt TDP.
No, I want to be clear. So because
Okay.
it's a prototype part, it's actually not
Right.
really fused to any spec yet.
Okay.
It doesn't have those things programmed in, but I also want to be clear, it's not in infinite mode either.
Okay.
So like its operating point in that test is like somewhere between the 105 and 170 range that we're working on. So I guess another way to put that is it's not running at maximum capability yet.
Gotcha. And just another quick related one. With current AM4 platforms and current processors, users have gotten used to a bunch of features inside Ryzen Master, PBO being one of them, or auto overclocking. Is all of that functionality coming with the next gen, or perhaps not at launch? Or is anybody going to give up any features with Ryzen 7000?
No. In fact, from like overclocking features point of view, like which ones are there, how they work, what to expect, users shouldn't expect any change from Zen 3. So if you've been tinkering on that platform for a long time, yeah, the fabric clocks are going to be different, memory clocks will be different, you'll have to learn a little bit of that, but everything else will translate directly. It'll be an easy transition.
Gotcha. Great.
Nice. I have a question relative to other ways of accelerating things, and that's with onboard engines, new instructions, things like that. You folks noted that in the presentation that you have new AI acceleration extensions, expanded instructions rather is how you phrased it. Can you offer some clarity there? What type of instructions are they? Proprietary to AMD? Are they sort of industry standard? Maybe a little bit more color there would be great to understand, if you could expand on that.
What I can say is it's not a fixed function AI accelerator, though with our Xilinx acquisition, that capability is within the realm of possibility now. And asterisk, that is not a comment on a roadmap. Just I want people thinking about that because we can do it. They are not AMD proprietary instructions either. And that's all I can say.
Okay. I don't know. Can we say anything like AVX512 or anything like that? No.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Onward and upward, Marco.
Yeah,
Sorry
I was
to
just
put
going
you on
through
the
the
spot
chat.
there, Robert.
I think lots of the questions that I can't see every comment in the chat. We're using StreamYard and some comments disappear. So if you ask something early that didn't come up in the conversation already, ask it again. Yeah, definitely ask it again. Just some quick high level stuff that I know people asked, and there was multiple questions sort of related to the same things, different platforms. It's early, but can we expect, is Zen 4 staying on the desktop, or is it likely to migrate to mobile platforms as well?
Oh, I think you saw us in our earnings, those Dragon Range and Phoenix programs that we talked about for notebook. Those are Zen 4 based as well. So you'll see Zen 4 notebook.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Just back to the RAM question. Is DDR 6000 the max that's supported, or is it overclockers expect to go higher?
I guess we'll see in time, won't we?
Okay. Gotcha. So
Speeds
we have a
to be
question.
broken.
This one is more high level and in terms of engagement with developers. It says, hello from Croatia. I have a question for Robert. Do you think developers will increasingly optimize games to use more cache instead of more cores?
That's a great question, actually.
Yeah.
The cool thing about cache is that a developer doesn't really need to go out of their way to do it. Like, yes, you can design to benefit the cache, but it's also somewhat natural. And by that I mean we look at game consoles that have what do they call it, a shared frame buffer, right? Shared memory pool between the GPU and the CPU in some cases, or we look at just the behavior of the player, which is random and unpredictable, which from a game engine point of view means lots of random fetches to memory, which cache can accelerate. So it's one part the trend of game design in general, in our industry because of the devices we have, and another part, the natural behavior of the player playing the game. And both of those cases benefit from cache. So that's why it's so powerful, because the developer doesn't really need to work too hard to take advantage of it. And that's why a lot of these newer titles are getting pretty accelerated by this technology, because they're just sort of designed that way by default.
Inherent, yeah. This is a good question that came in. High TDP and clock speeds. How can maybe expand a little bit, if you can, give us a little bit of color on the power efficiency of the new architecture, and maybe the manufacturing node, but just in general, power efficiency, performance per watt kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll get there. It's too early. The chip is new enough that not all the power features have turned on yet, so we can't really go measure clock for clock or core for core what the efficiency is. We will, and we'll definitely publish those numbers. We always do. So we intend to, over the summer, go into performance per watt, density improvements from 5 nanometer versus 7. What kind of performance gain are we seeing at a given frequency? All of those metrics are on the table. We just got to finish collecting them. So
characterizing it. Yeah. Very cool.
So I think you actually already answered this, unless I misheard. But we have multiple questions coming in on, will there be Zen 4 APUs? So the graphics in the I/O die shouldn't really be considered, full powered graphics. Will there be APUs for desktop platforms that use Zen 4 in the future? I think you said yes, but I'm not sure.
There will be APUs in our roadmap going forward. We have no intention to remove those from socket AM5.
Gotcha. Perfect. And it flew by quickly, so apologies if I don't find it and pop it on screen. During Dr. Sue's, here it is. During Dr. Sue's presentation, she said AM4 will continue on. I think she said for many years to come. Any insight as to, how long AM4 CPUs will continue to be pushed in market?
So I think what people will see early on is that AM4 and AM5 will essentially coexist in the market. There's still a large appetite for AM4. There's new system designs being built around AM4. There are still markets that are adopting AM4, even as other markets are evolving past that socket. So from a global point of view, AM4 still has a lot of legs. How long? Who knows, right? It depends on so many factors over time, and yeah, there might be new CPUs released for AM4, but nothing specifically planned now. But at the same time, we're here to make money on new CPUs. So like if there's a business opportunity or a business case for it, sure, why not, right?
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
And just, I'm not sure if you guys talked about this yet. Any word on like boxed coolers or anything going to change in the future with that strategy with Ryzen 7000?
No, I don't think you'll see much of a change versus Zen 3 CPUs.
Gotcha. Perfect. And there was another one that
I'm scrolling up all over the place here. Yeah.
Yeah, they're flying by too fast for me to stay on top of them here.
Giant wall.
Did I already ask this, or you may have already confirmed this? So the socket AM5 initial launch, 16 cores, is that max for the platform at launch?
Yeah, 16 cores is the maximum configuration, but it's worth noting that we're getting 40+% more performance out of that core count right now. So that doesn't seem too bad.
No, sounds pretty nice.
Seems great. Let me see. Dave, put on a good show while I scroll here for a minute here.
I'm scrolling my life away here.
We're singing, we're dancing.
So, this one might be tricky. Can you provide any color on gaming performance of 5800 X3D versus Zen 4? Anything you could say there?
Too soon to tell. It really goes back to the optimization point of where we're at in the silicon life cycle. I just don't know yet.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
There was multiple questions in that regard.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I am good. Oh, actually, no, here's one that I missed. So you guys talked about 1 meg of, I believe it was 1 meg, if I'm getting the numbers wrong, of L2 cache. Did you disclose any of the other cache sizes?
Yeah, the L3s.
We did not.
You did not.
Okay.
Can you disclose any of that?
We cannot.
Okay, we tried.
Pretty
Sorry,
straightforward.
Ryan. We tried, Ryan. Cool. You know, I'm going to do my usual thing anytime there's a big announcement like this, because most of the tech press has limited time to pull off these articles, and lots of times we want to be first or get something up in a timely manner, and some details get lost. I know you've had a lot of discussion with many outlets the last few days, but is there anything that we missed regarding Zen 4 and AM5 that you want to make sure the community knows?
That's always a good cue.
That is a good cue. You know, I've seen some angst around that 15% number, and I want to touch on that again.
Yep.
And I can't go too deep into it, but I want to say we were conservative on that number in like 4 or 5 unique and important ways. And just give us the benefit of the doubt. I think we've earned it. We really try hard to make sure we deliver exactly as promised, or oftentimes a lot more than we promise. So let's see how the summer goes before drawing conclusions. I think Zen 4 in the 7000 series is going to be extremely potent. It's a hell of an upgrade. Give it time.
Amen.
Got it.
Cool. Here's one that came in, and this might be worth delving into a little bit, I think. With respect to direct access storage, does PCI Express 5 and the additional bandwidth, probably some better latency numbers there as well, does that inherently make that technology better? I guess not paired with DDR5 because memory is out of the equation. You're going direct from NVMe to frame buffer, as you noted. But does the PCIe 5 platform help that technology even more? And maybe comment on that a little bit.
It could, right? Texture streaming is by far the biggest use case. Imagine you're playing a game where you never see the same wall or rock or blade of grass twice. That is within the realm of possibility through mega texturing or procedurally generated textures. We are rapidly approaching that era where you don't see the same brick wall in 10 different levels anymore. And that requires streaming technologies, and that requires a significant amount of disk to frame buffer bandwidth. So, right away, no, probably not. It's a new technology, but in the fullness of time, sure, I absolutely think it will benefit.
Got it. Cool. Very cool.
And I assume bandwidth is most important for direct access memory versus latency, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
So everyone that's asking the chat about IPC and about memory to fabric ratios, we kind of already answered that. We also talked about the frequency and architecture performance improvements a little earlier. So you can just have to scroll back a little bit in the cast here. There's something on memory. Let me see if this is relevant.
This might be interesting one on voltage.
Go ahead. I can pop it up.
I'm
scrolled way up.
Yeah. Any different nuances with respect to overclocking and, boosting and, I guess intricacies of voltages there that you can share with this platform?
Not yet, but what we did with the Ryzen 5000 series is give kind of a user experience, like what to expect from temperature and voltages and stuff. And we intend to do the same for Zen 4 so people know what's up as we transition to 5 nanometer. So I promise to come back with an answer.
Cool. All good. What else, Marco? I know you had something.
We had an earlier question, and there's another one that's sort of related, and I'm not sure if you can give clarity on this. In terms of flexibility with memory configurations, are there any limitations, say, filling all the memory slots versus just having dual channel? There's always some nuance there with, single and double-sided sticks and the arrangement. But is there anything drastically different with this platform over and above being DDR5 exclusive versus AM4?
One thing I have seen some maybe confusion about is like how many channels, like is it quad channel, is it dual channel? And the thing worth noting is that our DDR4 platform was dual channel because DDR4 is dual channel, unless you specifically build out extra memory channels on the motherboard. But like the native internal intrinsic design of DDR5, like each module or each pair of modules is itself dual channel. So yes, if you plug in 4 sticks, it is effectively quad channel memory. But that doesn't mean you're getting, 8 slots on a motherboard. It's not quad channel in quite the same way that people think of it today, looking at like Threadripper versus Ryzen. So I wanted to clear that up front. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward in terms of memory. 2 sticks will probably be the norm, but 32 gigs is the new 16 in the DDR5 era. Your typical capacity has doubled because DDR5 density is higher. And then, upwards of 4 sticks will also not be uncommon. So it's the same, but different. I hope that helps. I hope that clears it up a little bit.
Yep. I think that's going to clear it up for everybody. We had 2 quick ones that you kind of already answered in the past. So Alexandra, why no DDR4? Because the new IO die supports just DDR5. And someone else asked, could you have added RDNA2 to the IO die in the previous generation? The shrink to 6 nanometer freed up lots of silicon area, so AMD was able to put more in the IO die. So that's why it's that's why it's in here with Ryzen 7000. And with that, I think we have about a minute left. So I'm going to let Dave take it away.
No, Robert, I appreciate all the just stick-to-itiveness here, because we've been peppering you with lots of questions, and so you've really been fielding them well, I might add. You should maybe want to think about a career in baseball, because you're a good fielder. For sure.
Yeah, or a career in lawyering or whatever else.
God help you there. I think you're in the right field. Trust me. I think you're doing just fine. Good stuff. I did see one. This came in. This is a little interesting, but obviously your competitors having issues with Boeing and that kind of thing. Mechanically, is this chip and the heat spreader and all that good stuff, is it robust enough that we're not going to have issues with that? Did you guys look at that and sort of structural integrity and all that good stuff?
I've never seen the exact technical documentation, but if I may dangerously speculate for a moment, the fact that we're using socket AM4 coolers, that's not just a physical space thing, right? That's not just a spec for cooler must be this wide, this tall, this many watts. It's also a mounting force specification. How hard does that cooler press against the lid? And you have the same size package, the same Z height, the same mounting force, same bolt pattern. So you should get very similar results to what you see from Zen 3.
I think that's safe speculation. Yeah, makes sense. Physics.
Can we do 10 seconds of just rapid fire 1-word answers?
Go for it.
Sure. Ryzen 7000 gonna work with Windows 10?
Don't know.
Really?
I assume so. I assume so.
Okay, gotcha. Robert, what's your favorite game right now?
Oh, I'm gonna get laughed at. Minecraft.
You're not gonna. I still play Left 4 Dead 2. You're not gonna get laughed at. Okay. What else am I missing? I think that's it right now. We're at the top of the hour. So
yeah. We got to let Robert off the hook. The poor guy. He's been on the hot seat for too long. Robert, again, handling the hot seat. You're good with thermals as well. Clearly, so good stuff, man. We appreciate your time. Appreciate your time very much. Good to see you again as always. Good luck on the bring up here of Zen 4 and Ryzen 7000. It's going to be exciting stuff. We have a lot to look forward to, and thanks for
Can I just say one thing really quick? I'm really sorry.
Go for it.
So we have someone asking a question that I know Robert can't answer, but Alexis, I think you missed the Threadripper 5000 Pro series launch. So it's been 2 generations on TRX 40. But yes, okay. go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and Robert said Threadripper is in the future, so more to come there. That was confirmed on the cast. Yeah, yeah.
But maybe not the same
Permitted.
socket. There's nuance there, but
Yes,
okay,
right,
sorry.
right. But still Threadrippers. We'll be ripping threads in the future. Awesome. Well, Robert, thanks so much again. Robert Hallock, Director of Technical Product Marketing for AMD Ryzen. A pleasure to have you with us as always. And thanks so much for bearing with us in all our various questions and putting you in uncomfortable spots. We appreciate it.
You know, I got my tap dancing shoes on, guys. I always appreciate coming on, and on behalf of all of us here, we're really grateful to have the opportunity. This is a great show, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, great. Good to have you with us again. Robert Hallock from AMD. Folks, you can find us on the web at hothardware.com, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware, Hot Hardware vids as well. Hit thumbs up and subscribe so you get notified when we go live. We try and go every Wednesday, except when important people like Robert are available and we have to go on Thursday. But every Wednesday at 5:30, typically we go streaming. Today we mixed it up a little bit for Robert, and we very much appreciate his time. But yes, find us on the web, hit thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for stopping by.